We face division in every part of our lives, within ourselves, within our relationships, and in our work. But it doesn't have to be that way. To live fully, we must integrate all that God has made us to be with the work He has given us to do. This is MyBLVD's Integrate podcast, helping churches, nonprofits, and everyday Christians identify the divisions holding them back and giving them tools to make lasting change.
Welcome to MyBLVD's Integrate podcast, where we talk about the 7 core components of an integrated disciple maker. I am here today with Angie.
Hi.
Amisho.
Hello.
And I am Dhati Lewis, and I am just excited about being here today. And Amisho, what are we talking about today?
Today we are talking about leaving a legacy.
I think that's really good because, my mind is obviously right here. We we talk about these on, and we do this every Wednesday. Yesterday, we weren't able to do it. We're actually doing it on Thursday to this week. But the reason why is we went to be at a funeral. Well, I got a chance to go to a funeral of someone who's dear to our hearts, and that was Jacqueline K Taylor. And it was a really time of celebratory, but it was also a time of a lot of sadness. And it just had me starting to think about, legacy. Because one of the things that kind of stood out to me in that time was the legacy that she left. And for someone who was always played the background, who always never tried to be out front, never tried to be the number one, just the type of impact. It was a big church. The church was full. Many people were getting up, and you can just tell when someone is up there testifying about a person, and you just look into the audience, and everyone's just nodding their heads and just like, yeah. And I just remember just all the different people who were telling the stories up there about Jacqueline. I just remember just saying, man, it just took me back to that conversation, a certain conversation that I had with her. And it just really just talked about, man, she left an imprint. She left a legacy. And even more than that, I remember like her kids went up and shared, each one of them, she has 4 kids, and each one of them just shared just talked about heaven is the goal and Jesus and it was just really such a sweet moment, and that as a parent, the legacy or disciple like that you want to live and you want to leave for your children is what we saw testified, and my prayer is that they, like, the words that they said weren't just words that were in the moment, but that just the body of Christ and individuals like myself and others and even podcasts like this, we could hope to encourage them to live out what their mom would have wanted for them most. And so that's why I was just like, this is a great day for us to talk about leaving a legacy. We see that all throughout the scriptures, and I just think it's an important thing for us to do, especially like when I think about our 6 children, Angie. We think about leaving a legacy. How, like, what do you when you hear leaving a legacy? When you think about Jacqueline, you think about this, what we're talking about today. What comes to mind for you?
So much, but I talked to Jackie often about raising kids, and I think we share the same sentiment of, like, the goal isn't to raise kids that are, great academias or academics or great ball players, or, they can be all of those things, but the goal is, that you raise them to pursue the Lord and to want to be something that continue your work when you're gone. And, I think about Psalm 127. And we know that verse because of the first part. Oftentimes we think about the first part, if the Lord doesn't, show up, you do everything in vain kind of idea. But the second part of that verse talks about children are an inheritance from the Lord. They're like arrows in the hands of a warrior, and the man can stand on the hill and shoot out his arrows and not be ashamed of the day that's going to come because he knows, he's shooting something out. And that's what I want to see of my kids, that whatever work, wherever the Lord takes me, wherever my work ends, that they would be, I don't have to be ashamed or fearful because they will continue. They'll continue whatever it is that I was doing. And
Amen.
Gosh, that's the goal. So that's what I think about. And like you said, I know the Lord's planted things in their hearts. So, and I think about her kids. I hope that that's the case. Yeah.
Yeah. And oftentimes with My Boulevard, one of the things that we talk about often is, being the last generation. But I think about specifically the 2100, right? The year 2100. My oldest son will be 92. My youngest son will be 91, and my middle son will be 91, and my youngest son is 89. And I just remember that and just saying, like, the things that we're doing, hopefully we are investing into that future. That it's not just about what we're going to, things we're doing, that we're doing the here and now, but like, are we investing in that future? And what are the things that we're going to be doing now that will impact the 21st century? And I just always remember, being influenced, in that way of thinking, Booker T. Washington. And I just remember walking with my kids through up from slavery, and just remember just talking about a man who was born kind of into slavery
on a dirt floor.
And I just remember it says, hey, do you guys know that Uncle Show, right, was impacted by the work of this man and what that man did? And, we're 100 years later, and it's just kind of like, that's the type of legacy that we want to live. Is just like, how, not just what are we getting from what we're investing now, but what are we doing that's going to invest in generations to come.
Yeah. I've been to 3 memorials, I think in the last year or so, and actually like last 6 months. And the beautiful thing about those memorials, it's a very true testament to another Psalms 116:15, that reads, "The death of his faithful ones is valuable in the Lord's sight." How is that possible? It makes no sense, but it makes all the sense in the world. And I referenced this passage during a Sunday team meeting. Henry Nouwen talks about in his book Here and Now, he talks about the possibility of sorrow and joy existing together. Yeah. Oftentimes we don't think about sorrow and joy being able to cohabitate. And the reality of it is that is the Christian life in a lot of ways. James 1 talks about considering things joy that doesn't seem to be joyful in the earthly sense, because all things are producing faith in us. And it's just a beautiful thing to know that the life of Jackie, the other people that I've kind of celebrated their life, it truly to me is a testament to the Christian life. And there's no lies being told, right? Because you can when we were young, we went to funerals of family members and you were like, they were nasty people. That was a terrible person. And the pastor gets up there and says all these wonderful things. You're like, But it's a beautiful thing to know that these individuals are not lying about the life and the legacy that they've left. And I say, to be in the midst of that memorial is very similar to Ecclesiastes, where it says better to be in a house of mourning and then the house of laughter. And the house of mourning sobers us to why we are actually here. Like, death it's a wake-up call to living. Yeah. And you know what I mean? And I love the fact that these folks are going to be like a beautiful aroma in the Lord's sight, and so their lives are not in vain. So it's just really encouraging to hear you guys. I didn't know Jackie, but to your point, like, everything I've heard about her, exceptional.
Yeah.
Like,
and it was just time after time. And for people, and what was that? The funeral was heavily bent to the Virginia, stuff. I mean, there was some stuff that was said by her employee, which was the North American Mission Board, but it was heavily skewed to Virginia. And so we're talking about 10 years ago, and people were talking as if it was just
the continued
new,
effect,
but just her time here in Georgia, her time with Boulevard, her time with NAM, it was, her impact was.
You saying it could have been a whole second?
Oh yeah, it could have been. We could do it. Yeah, we could do a whole nother one.
Yeah,
but it just, and I love what you're talking about. Just the idea of joy and sorrowfulness. We talk about that in Known 360. It's just like joy with sadness is the best we're really ever going to get, because anything that we get, we're actually ultimately going to lose. And and that's really what's the core of addiction, right? The core of addiction is the inability to, of not being able to grieve what is lost. It's like we're trying to get to a feeling, want a feeling, and we're going to do anything to get to that feeling.
Yeah.
It's the athlete trying to get back to that high of winning a championship, or it's the drug addict trying to get that feel, that physical that physical feel or response. And so when we talk about even the integrated leader, we talk about this idea of this even disciple making and leaving a legacy. Like we got to leave some like an emotional imprint, like an emotional like legacy that is an imprint on the people's hearts, so that they can know how to deal with joy, with sadness. Because otherwise, we will just be chasing, chasing kind of this moment, or that like life defining, and not know how to be present in the here and now.
I think that's a good point, because legacy doesn't come by chance. Like it doesn't just happen. When you're leaving a legacy, it comes with fight, and it comes with. I love even when I reference to Psalm 127. It talks about arrows, like referring to you're leaving a legacy for the generation behind you, and they're like arrows. And if you think about arrows, they're dirty. They're not meant to be like shiny and like pristine and like kept in a cute little box or something. Like they're meant for utility. They're
You haven't seen the Lord of the Ring arrows, that's why.
Oh, well, I haven't actually, but
no.
But okay, the technical sense of an arrow, like you're shooting it out, it's going to get dirty and bloody and it's messy. Yeah. And I think about Jackie even, and like the people that we celebrate and whose lives were like, yes, like I want to do that, I want to leave that. You see what they've endured and the messiness and the endurance. I think that's the best word, the perseverance of, that's what makes their life so sweet, is the people have seen what they've endured, and how they can still have joy. Like you said, that joy with sadness, that joy with sorrow, the joy with what earth has to offer. And oftentimes that's the heaviness,
Yeah. When you mentioned Gnome 360, I love, that was one of the first times that, I've done Gnome 360 sort of, but listening.
Okay. Well, we'll sign you up.
Well, yeah, I probably need to do it because of the groups, but the content. Because I had a chance to edit the actual videos.
Okay.
I sat through the class, but to do it through a processing group would probably be highly beneficial, especially now. But the way that you guys broke down those emotions, the not the shadows of the emotions, but I forgot what
impairments.
The impairments. Yeah. The impairments of it. And I think oftentimes as you communicate it is good to grieve. It's good to feel sad. And I mean, what's the movie? Inside Out communicates that.
That was a wonderful movie.
It's a wonderful depiction of us trying to create this counterfeit joy all the time. And it's like, that it doesn't benefit anybody, because there are times when you need to be like, I'm hurt, I'm broken. The problem is that sometimes we take that too far and we allow it to master us. And I think these are beautiful times for us to reflect on, what we're losing in these friendships, what we lose in these people, and the joy of their life catalyzes us to, good work and deeds. Yeah. So
someone told me, it may have been Dhati, so you can take credit if you said this, or maybe it's Chip Dodd, but the idea of grief, like the more sad, is sadder a word? The more you're grieving, the more that thing meant to you, that person meant to you, whatever it was that you lost.
Yeah.
Hearing that gave me such permission to be all the more sad. Like, that's freeing. If because I'm so sad, that just means that whatever that is, whether it be a person or a life event or a time period or whatever, it meant a lot. And I thought that was one of those powerful statements.
It's the more you grieve something is the more you honor what you are grieving. You're honoring the loss of what you grieve. I hope you suckers grieve a whole bunch when I'm gone. And I think that is
I'm coming with you.
You better somebody make room in that casket. Scoot over.
Yeah. No, I just think that is true. And I think unless you are able to grieve well, like I think you will either make, you'll try to crystallize this feeling or this thing, and you won't be able to leave a legacy, because that desire will become an idol in a sense, like because you just want to always be known, always in front, always, and just not understand that legacy building, it takes a lot of sacrifice. It's a lot of, you think about Christ, laying down his
Absolutely.
life, and that many people would say, if you just take off Christ and put like John there, people's like, that wasn't a real successful life. He didn't really fulfill the task. He had about 100 people around after, like, most of his closest people denied him at the end.
Right.
But we know that he left the ultimate legacy, that we're sitting around this table right now because of Christ. We lead organizations because of Christ, and explicitly, there's people all around the world, millions of people, because of Christ. He left the ultimate legacy, but it caused him to lay down.
Yeah.
I love Philippians chapter 2. He says, even though he was in the form of God, he did not recall, or he did not think equality with God was something to be grasped, but instead he emptied himself. That he knew that ultimately leaving a legacy is about emptying yourself. So in the context of what we're talking about, disciple making and discipleship, whether it's our kids, whether it's on our jobs, whether it's at home, it's about laying down your life for the benefit of others. It's proactively meeting the needs for the benefit of others. And I think that is what it's about, legacy building. It's a complete reversal. Legacy building and getting your name known not is about serving yourself, but it's about serving others.
I also would just accentuate that oftentimes legacies will not, like, you won't get a chance to like appreciate whatever legacy you leave.
Yes.
There are so many people who grow, I guess you can say, famous after they die, because people go back and appreciate the wisdom that they bestowed. Like, some of my favorite authors are people who died broke and lonely. It's crazy to think about. And then 40 years later, some famous person dug them up and was like, why weren't we listening to these? Like, what happened? And then they grow kind of like, and so a lot of times, to your point, like, I just think leadership is a beautiful thing, but I also think it can be a thing that is highly misunderstood in our society, because we think success, we immediately equate that to like business, corporation, where gain increase is always the metric of what good or successful is. But as you communicated, oftentimes you get addition by subtraction, and the more you lose or deny yourself, or by people turning away from you, it may not seem beneficial in a moment, but later folks will come around and say, you know what, like, I appreciate the way that you took, you handled that situation, and you lost some people, but it helped me grow. Like, the people who were strong, and I remember first coming to know the Lord, and you, James, and Joe were leading our college ministry. And 90% of the time, I hated you guys. Because I was like, these two, like, bro, like, they are just so... I remember y'all wouldn't allow people to do stuff on stage unless you were part of a group. I was like, this is dumb. We ain't gonna reach nobody in school if we ain't got good singing. But then you realize, like, that's building... The things that you guys were doing were building devotion and faithfulness versus just putting on performances and reaching folks and creating increase. And, it actually began to invert the philosophy I had. It's like, man, stop trying to just reach the football players and the basketball players or the popular people. Who are the people who are faithful and really want to grow and know the Lord? And so anyway,
I think that leads us to the passage that I think is one of the ultimate passages about faithfulness in the scriptures, especially faithfulness tied to discipleship. And it's one of my verses, and probably one of my favorite books is 2 Timothy chapter 2:2, when Paul is talking to Timothy. He says, and the things you heard me say in the presence of many witnesses, the same commit to faithful men who will be able to teach others also. And so in that, you see kind of, there's 4 generations of disciple makers. You have Paul discipling Timothy, Timothy discipling faithful men, and faithful men discipling others. And, and so we're talking about leaving a legacy. That's the type of legacy that we want to leave, and it comes not by trying to reach the masses. I will never forget, in the book, Master Planner Evangelist, Jesus' method was the men. And that's what he just talked about. His method was the men, the few men. And I think that is the importance, that if we want to leave the legacy, that we got to reach the masses through the few people that we have in front of us, and not the opposite. We end up trying to reach the masses and miss the few.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening, we end up hitting none of them, you know. But if we reach the few, right, we will actually meet the masses. And so I just really think that this is important. So, you know, we just wanted to honor our sister, Jackie Taylor, also AKA known as Madam Presidente. She left a legacy and an imprint on each and every one of us, and, you know, both directly and indirectly. And so we just wanted to honor her, and you know, and hope that our lives have the same type of impact that her life had on so many. So we love you guys, and we will talk to you later.
Thank you for listening to My Boulevard's Integrate podcast. Be sure to visit us online at myboulevard.co, that's myboulevard.co, or follow us on social media to stay updated on all things My Boulevard.